He picked it one time in the blind pick stage, so lots of success. And of course, Goody coming in wants to have a bigger splash this time than he did the first week that he qualified, and just goes to show you how much of a consistent player he is.
All right, I think we have a pretty good idea what kind of mage this is.
Oh, yes.
Just based on, well, whatever we see right in front of you. It's going to be a Giants mage. Now, this mage from Hype specifically was popularized by him as a very unique and hard deck to play. There's many ways that you can stylize it, but the main purpose of it is to be defensive until you can push out really heavy Giants when you have low health based off an ice block.
Yeah.
And of course you get duplicates, so you get many different targets that you can ideally use to swing the board.
Yep. And Hyped as a player, you mentioned it earlier, he's one of the people in competitive Hearthstone who probably has the most experience at Mage, and he's brought Mage to a lot of tournaments, even when Mage wasn't considered that strong of a class. I believe he brought it at the BlizzCon World Championships as well, which he unfortunately lost in the first round of the American qualifiers to the eventual winner. But that's a story of the past.
Well, I guess if you go out like that, it's frustrating to a large extent because you lost to a guy who, you probably felt like you could have beat and even won, maybe the whole thing. But, when you lose to the guy who wins it all, it's like, well, at least, I didn't get taken out by a scrub who just beat me the next round.
Yeah. Well, I think this is actually a little bit of a different deck that Gooby's bringing today. Unless we just didn't see it fleshed out as much yesterday.
Game Hunter and Shown.
Yeah, we didn't see a BGH yesterday from Gooby, and we didn't see a Piloted Shredder. We never got to Fatigue, so we never saw every single card. But he doesn't have to keep the same deck that he did yesterday. He can change it up a little bit, and sometimes it's smart to. Especially if the players that he's facing today did any sort of research by watching yesterday. Might be a smart switch up.
Yeah, I think so. Now, we don't know what secret immediately came out, but we do know Duplicate and Ice Block are in the deck. I'm not sure if there's an Ice Barrier or any other secret, but I do know 2 Duplicates is very important because you play a lot of 1-ofs in the deck. It's very useful because then you can line it up. And this is already a test for Duplicate because you attack after you Hex, and Gooby sees, oh, no Duplicate, so I wasted a Hex. But that's where the BGH comes in because it acts like another form of removal.
It still doesn't guarantee him knowledge of what secret that is, though, because there's still a couple more. He hasn't really tested much yet. I guess he knows it's not Counterspell because of the Hex, so it could be Ice Block, could be Ice Barrier.
Have to be careful. I mean, if it's Mirror Entity, you don't want to give any of these targets.
Yeah.
Just because you don't want to play BGH suboptimally. It's a very tricky situation. If it's Counterspell, you might dedicate half your mana turn to doing nothing. This is a very problematic. And of course, we know it's Ice Block. There's nothing that's going to pop it immediately here.
But that's still something you got to keep in the back of your mind. And he wants to test the waters with the BGH, but once he sees those Molten Giants come down later on, I know he'll be kicking himself for making that decision.
Maybe it might not even need to. If the board gets out of control and Flame Strike destroys everything Shaman has.
That's true.
You might not ever get a chance to play Molten Giants if they don't get low enough. Oh man, Gooby's going through all the permutations of like what's the least damaging if it is the worst possible scenario, and then whether or not you close your eyes and just go for it.
And it looks like closing his eyes and going for it is going to be the choice.
Oh, Gooby's wide-eyed.
Oh! He's waiting for it.
Okay, it's not Mirror Entity, and we knew that, of course, but it's not always as guaranteed as you'd like to think it is.
Now, the one thing that I've noticed about the Giants mages is that they don't have as much of a draw engine as like Freeze Giants. It seems like they sometimes lack a lot of card draw, and sometimes it can be tough to play defensive in some circumstances.
Well, you do have Arcane Intellect, I believe, in this deck.
Arcane Intellect, but I think that's about
Duplicate. Duplicate is very much powerful card draw, because you get to draw from a source of cards that you can get guaranteed. Against Shaman's a little bit weaker because of the Hex. It can actually completely backfire, but Hype's already seen 1 Hex, so it's good. So how do you go about this turn if you're Gooby? It seems like you want to try and keep your health as high as you can on this Fire Elemental, so that way you can bait out, if he has a Fireball or a Polymorph, so that way you have other threats in the deck that can line up. So I think keeping it high health is a pretty big priority.
Yeah.
So if you play the Azure Drake and Crackle, you guarantee a roll that can kill off the Sludge Belcher, but then you're still getting through inefficiently.
Yeah, that's very true.
Uncomfortable.
And you're still floating a lot of damage as well because
Right.
you'd be attacking in with the Fire Elemental for effectively 2 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
But it looks like that's going to be the play, and definitely wants to preserve that health.
Yeah, but Flame Strike will definitely have something to say about this.
Oh, yes.
Ha! And good thing he had the spell power. It was a 4 roll, too.
Yeah. We saw some pretty underwhelming crackles yesterday as well, and there is the Arcane
Very
Intellect.
important draw.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel pressured enough? It is 11 damage. Flame Strike seems to line up perfectly here. I think so. Even if you have Molten Giants, I don't think you want to take that damage because you're still, the game is still young. You know, you need to develop your hand a little bit better. Wow. So Big Game Hunter lined up perfectly for Dr. Boom. You still also have Fireball at your disposal if you don't want to use your Big Game Hunter, but I think this is the best target for it because not many Shaman decks have a better target than Dr. Boom. Now, other than maybe Neptulon, but I think like Neptulon maybe even got subbed out here for Dr. Boom.
Yeah. And of course if he decides to use the BGH, which almost seems like it's going to be a possibility, which definitely seems like it's going to be a possibility, sequencing definitely matters.
I think he also is talking about the possibility of attacking a bomb, hero powering another bomb first, and then playing the Big Game Hunter so it doesn't get jeopardized.
Yeah, yeah.
But the sequencing is very important. So I think Hype's just going over all the permutations, making sure that he lines this up correctly.
Yeah. Because if you hero power a bomb first, then it kills your Mad Scientist, you're
like,
still leaving a bomb up.
Right. But then do you want the duplicate to go down on the BGH?
It's an ice block.
Well, right now this is an
yeah,
ice block, but most likely
as far
it'll
as
come down.
yeah. That's very true. We'll see right now if I guess if he's running any secrets.
I think he wants the BGH to die before he gets the duplicate targets off.
Yeah, okay.
So this is actually a very clever sequencing from Hyped because he wants to get rid of it. Now Goody is going to prioritize it, and it looks like he's catching on to it, so he should attack this mat. Okay. So he attacks the Big Game Hunter first, and I think that's exactly what Hyped wanted, because now, even if his opponent has Earthshock for his Twilight Drakes, he's going to be able to get more of them, and he can't line it up correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That is some heavy damage that can also go, or actually some very good pressure. Although, I'm not sure if you want to duplicate Alex Strauss's, right? Feels a little clunky.
It could, yeah. Because at the end of the game, well, I mean, he could, like, Alex Strauza this turn to set up for double Molten Giants next turn. Because either way, he's either getting an Alex Strauza. Well, but then that is a definite risk for Hex getting duplicate, but I guess it wouldn't matter either way. But you probably want a smaller target to eat up a Hex, or a smaller target to get duplicated first.
Well, I mean, there's more where that came from. This Earthshock is the big draw to deal with it, but I'm pretty sure Goody knows what's secrets in play here. It's like, well, it's very clear. He has one target. It's a very good target for duplicate. He just got a Mad Scientist pop off. This is not ideal at all.
Yeah, but at the same time, he doesn't really have other options. He can't really start pushing through because then it gives Mage initiative at that point, and with a big hand like that, you know that you sort of have to. It hurts giving him 2 Twilight Drakes, but it doesn't really have many options in that case.
So this is where things start to get very dicey for Goody, unless he has ways to pressure for the continuous pressure to kill, because these Twilight Drakes will absolutely wreak havoc on the board. And from that point on, Goody will never have leverage to use like Defender of Argus effectively. I mean, that is a very important burst card. In fact, can he pop his opponent's block right now? See, 5, 10, 15. No, he can't.
Nope, not quite.
It's close.
Well, he rolled high on 1, but that makes it really, really awkward. Either way, it would have been pretty awkward.
Lightning Storm is not very good against this type of deck anyway. So many single target high health creatures.
Yeah, you look at it, it's like Twilight Drake, Sludge Belcher. None of those are that bad against Lightning Storm. And he's starting to run out of cards as well.
Yeah.
I mean, his hand's just really weak right now.
Problem also is Goody needs to protect his Flame Tongue Totem because it is another form of burst with his Alec here.
He really wants
Another Taunt Totem?
Oh! Oh, at least he's catching some breaks here.
That's very big. I think he might feel like he has to play his Defender Vargas or Feral Spirits as well. I think he needs slightly more power on the board, but it's scary because of another Flame Strike. Because now you still don't even threaten to kill your opponent next turn. Not with that draw, at least. Frostbolt.
This is a pretty scary hand here for Hyped.
I think it's definitely a case for a Ragnaros play, but if you want to be defensive, you still have an opportunity to Frostbolt and then play like another threat as well.
I do think a
big threat is really big. Double Molten.
I think that's going to be it.
Whoa!
He attacked before he went for the Flame Tongue, so... I mean, if you think about it, what's wrong with this play? It's like, you know you've been through one Hex.
Well...
You know that you had 2 Twilight Sharks on the board before and he couldn't deal with them.
It's true. The problem with doing a play like what I even just suggest is that Ragnaros would get overwhelmed by the big game hunter and then you lost momentum.
Yeah.
So.
Now he's still got at least a little bit of momentum going in his favor.
So it's still Ice Block. I mean, there's plenty of ways for Hype to deal with it. That feels like way too many Twilight Drakes in one deck, but that's the power of Duplicate.
Yeah.
He's not going to need that for now, I think, because Frostbolt, and then... Actually, it might be okay to drop this Twilight Drake this turn, too. I think you're starting to sense that, like, if you're hyped, you're starting to sense that you might die, whether it's Doomhammer or, like, a Rockbiter combination of some sort. So I think you have to be mindful that your Ice Block might get popped, in which case you have to consider, 1... how the state of the board will be afterwards. Will you be safe enough to Alex Draws yourself? And then 2, will you be able to even kill him? So that way that won't be necessary.
Yeah. And you know that your opponent is running low on cards as well. So you can outlast him as well. And okay, so Frost Nova is going to be the choice.
So he's got lethal next turn with just a Molten Giant and a Fireball. But we know that there's definitely ways for this to stall out, as there are taunts available to Goody.
Yeah.
If he plays the Alec here, let's see, if he plays the Alec here, he's going to crash it because he has 5 attack, and that's not going to be enough to kill.
No. Just feels like a really underwhelming Alec here at this point. Using Alec here basically just to kill off a Sledge Belcher, and I mean it puts up a wall. That's really what he was going for there. Sort of a desperation attempt to try and keep himself alive and take a little bit of power threat off the board, but...
Right. Well, I mean, that Taunt Totem is, again, being really annoying, because you normally would want to use the Fireball for pushing for final bits of damage, but fortunately that's standing in the way here. Still a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more taunts where that came from. In fact, this Taunt Totem rolls, the non-stop Taunt Totem rolls, has been very, very effective for Goody, despite the fact that he's not drawing all of his burst damage cards. Like, he hasn't had his Rock Biters to pair along with his Alec here.
And this is just sort of how Shaman operates, even with even if they're low on fumes, running on fumes, and just no cards in their hand, they can still, with their hero power, just keep themselves alive, keep themselves in the game, stretch cards further than they would normally go, and just keep themselves in the match. And I mean, it seemed like Hype's hand was so scary a few turns ago, but now it's starting to empty out a bit. It's still very scary, but again, those taunt totems over and over again, just really annoying to deal with. And he holds onto the Fireball and doesn't preserve the health on his Molten Giant just to be able to keep that burn in his hand.
If this Azure Drake is really big if it picks up a Lightning Storm, Hex is pretty good too. Just to disarm the board as best as he can, because he needs to protect it. And this Flame Tongue Totem, again, has been so clutch.
Oh, yeah. It goes back to that Taunt Totem roll a few turns ago when he sacrificed his Taunt Totem in and got it again. He's had a wall to protect this Flame Tongue Totem now for probably about, what, 6 turns? Which is not a luxury that you usually get as a Shaman player.
Well, he's going to have even more with Feral Spirits.
All right, well.
And I think Kubi's timed this out very well too, because he's staggering all of his taunts, so that way his opponents had the least amount of effectiveness with it.
I'd say this is an awkward hand.
It is awkward, but you know, how long are you going to hold on to cards like Ragnaros?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the best option. Alexstrasza, you're not going to get much out of it because it won't have immediate board impact. You either have a neutral effect on yourself or heal your opponent for 1.
All right, well, that's one of the better targets.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I think that's the. Do you think it's the best target compared
I think it's
to it?
maybe the Flame Tongue Totem. Or the I think Azure
Drake is probably the best.
Yeah. It represents too much threat on the board.
Well, the Twilight Drake's still doing work. It's commanding a lot of pressure and damage. And Gooby's trying to see if it can not use this Hex, but I think he has to. And that means Alexstrasza is still going to go uncontested unless his Flame Tongue can get really good mileage again and trade for yet another large target.
He debates whether or not to attack first and actually leave the Hex target up to maybe try and get closer to popping the Ice Block, but I think in the end it's pretty inconsequential just because you have to kill an Ice.
So, this is actually quite funny because Doomsayer can clear the board, but you have to utilize like a fireball in order to secure it. This is a really weird game.
Yes, it is.
So the way to do it would be to Doomsayer and then fireball the Flame Tongue.
Yeah.
And then your opponent can't deal with it unless he draws another Earthshock, right?
What to do?
Or a Crackle.
What to do?
And rolls high.
But you're not really taking out much if you do that. 2 totems plus a zombie chow. You're stopping him from creating any more pressure on the board.
Well,
but I think that's the only play.
It's you're paving a way for a clean Alexstrasza because of the Flame Tongue totems.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure that this is a little bit of a riskier thing because you're taking off. You're still allowing. Oh, actually, no, it's about the same because of the Flame Tongue totems. But
Oh,
yep, that is a snipe.
that's
on
a
the
fantastic
Doomsayer.
draw right there. Because not only does it allow him to pick off the Doomsayer, but it puts another threat on the board. Gets him closer to being able to pop that Ice Block. The one bad thing, though, is that he's going to overextend here.
I mean, it's a rush at this point. You're trying to rush down the mage.
What is he thinking about right now? Positioning?
Yeah, well, he saw his opponent played a big game Hunter. But I don't know. I think you're still positioning it on the left here.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think he's trying to calculate how much damage he can do next turn. If he puts it on the left, weighing it against how likely it is that his opponent has a second BGH. And that's a...
Oh man, that was something Gooby was absolutely afraid of for such a long time.
And Gooby
that is
knows.
devastating.
Yeah.
That is cold-blooded hype.
Yeah. No emotion whatsoever.
This might come down to like the last fatigue stages here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, both players have had some pretty good draws right off the top. The Earthshock for the Twilight Drake, even the Fire Elemental just last turn, so... An Explosive Sheep as well.
Well, I think Alexstrasza here is his best bet. No more Flame Tongues, no more Hexes.
Yep.
He's used a Crackle.
Explosive
Sheep, so that way once more he can clear the board. Very, very patient play.
Yeah.
But you got Earthshock for it. Do you want to Earthshock the Explosive?
I think you have to. What else? You can't afford to lose. Like, every creature counts right now.
It's true.
And every point of damage counts. Because you're getting close to that fatigue stage. You need to get closer to popping that Ice Block or else you're not going to have a chance.
Yikes.
But
oh, that's really bad news.
yeah. I mean, you say...
Now Sylvanas comes down. And of course, you also know that there's one more duplicate in the deck. Oh boy. Do you have to go for the chance that Sylvanas steals a Feral Spirit here?
Yeah. Totem up and.
Or do you just sacrifice everything? Like, you trade both of these minions into Sylvanas, Rockbiter, the spell power totem? I think that's too damaging.
I don't think he can afford to do that. And he still has to have a good roll.
Wait. Oh, wait. He might be able to pop Ice Block. 4
if he rolls
plus
high.
7 on Crackle is 11 plus 3 on the Rockbiter.
If he rolls a 7.
But then Alexstrasza is gonna like be so devastating if he doesn't pop the Ice Block and he gets him to like 2 health.
Yeah. Even if he does pop the Ice Block, Alexstrasza would still be devastating.
Right, but at least he still has a chance. So what's it gonna be? Is he gonna drain to Alex? Or sorry, to Sylvanas? He is.
Oh, wow! The green light. I guess since the spectator mode, he attacked for a second there. Since the green went away from the Feral Spirit, I thought he sold the Feral Spirit.
So hyped second last card here is Duplicate. Remember, he still has Ice Block up. So does he set Duplicate up before his Alexstrasza? Well, he's confident that it won't die.
What is he afraid of as far as burst goes? I mean, I guess Crackle.
I mean, he might just. Well, the thing is, he might just have no way to kill Shaman other than his hero power, realistically. Like, Goody actually has to kill this Alexstrasza, but I think he's going to try and race against time and attack his opponent and let fatigue settle in.
Yeah. And he spreads his power out.
Oh, I forgot about that card.
Wow. And that's a trump card right there.
You have to deal with his Antonitis, but if you do, you're still giving your opponent fuel. And remember, he's got 1 fireball already from the pop-it, but Antique Healbot is such a big draw too.
This was the card that I was talking about yesterday that showed up some of the bad matchups for Shaman. In the past, they never had ways to gain health.
Okay, wait. If you pop the Ice Block now, oh, you can't. Yes, if you roll high on Crackle. If you roll high on Crackle,
you have to get a spell power totem and roll high on Crackle.
He dies on his own turn.
It's like, oh, this Crackle's gonna be huge.
No, it rolled low.
Very low.
This game is still far from over. Actually, I mean, it's not far. It's about to end very soon. And again, these taunts that have been afflicting him have been so devastating. Hyped is very much aware that he dies if his opponent, gets him to 1 health, or if his opponent does 1 damage to him, he dies. So in fact, Hyped has to spend his entire turn clearing the board here. Otherwise, he dies because of the secret popping. The secret's not active on your turn, so you take fatigue damage. Because Hype's going to be at 1 health next turn if he takes 2 fatigue. So he needs to clear the board, polymorph a target, shoot it with his fire blast, and fireball another target. And he'll have the killing damage next turn.
And then he has to rely on Goody not drawing into that single point of damage.
Right. How much damage does he have? Like just a single Rockbiter?
A Rockbiter.
Or a Fire Elemental. He's got so many cards that is out.
Does he even have a Fire Elemental anymore?
I don't know. But he has to have damage in his deck, for sure. A Defender of Argus even. Anything to give him 1 point of damage.
Wow. This is going to come down to the wire.
Oh,
one card. Aha!
Well, squeezing in an extra point here. It makes sense. So does Goody have 1 point of damage? No! It's Harrison Jones.
Oh.
Wait. If he rolls a taunt totem. Oh my god! Seriously?
He's still dead.
It doesn't matter though because of the Alexstrasza, the double fireballs, right? Oh, that's so crazy.
So close.
Goody and his taunt totems cannot hold off the onslaught of fireballs. This game is mad.
1 damage away. I'm sure there was a couple cards in his deck that would have finished the game. And he only had, what?
Wow.
5 cards left, maybe? 3 cards? It was
so
very close. Yeah.
I mean, he definitely had damage. There's only 3 cards remaining. But that's the end of our first game. What an explosive start to the series.
That's heartbreaking for Goody as well. But Hype, that's Really well played, I think, by
attack.
Yep.
Pretty devastating stuff. Well, looks like we have a rogue. I'm not necessarily pegging it as one or the other. Definitely leaning away from Miracle because Miracle is just too slow.
Yeah, I think this is that mid-rangey control rogue. That's increasing in popularity, I think.
Wow. Goody is so afraid of like a fan of knives destroying a State of Night.
Yeah.
And he just hero powers down the Thanos.
Whoa! Well, that doesn't change too many things.
Gallywix.
Gallywix is a card that not really sure its identity right now. Like, where does it fit in?
Tempo
in a lot
card,
of this deck?
for sure.
Yeah, but tempo rogues are. I guess this deck is sort of a tempo deck, but it seems like you control the board a lot earlier on without creatures.
How do you
unlike a
deal
tempo.
with a Gallywix if you're Druid?
Keeper? I guess it's really hard. It's a 5/8, right? Yeah, that's an awkward amount of health and attack.
Yeah, like you can't just snipe it or
Can't BGH.
swipe it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true.
You might have to use Savage Roar or something equivalent to it, but then you give your opponent Savage Roar.
And that's really dangerous to give to a rogue.
Yeah.
Because it combos with their weapons as well. And
But, I mean, you do get a coin, so you hit your combo a little earlier. It's like you get half of an Innervate for using your card.
yeah.
I mean, the ideal way to play against Gallywix is just use minion trading, or to kill your opponent so that way it doesn't matter what spell you give them. Like, say Gallywix is on the board, but you use Force of Nature, Savage Roar, doesn't really matter. Well, this is also starting to get a little awkward too. So he uses Savage Roar to try and push through here and eliminate a lot of what's on the board.
It's really dangerous to leave a Violet Teaser up.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you don't have Swipe in hand.
Oh yeah. That can change your line of play as well. Because sometimes you want him to try and overextend.
Ooh. Azure Drake prep
Yikes.
Fan of Knives. That is really devastating. Oh man. Oh, this just got completely turned on its head. Oh no, poor Gooby.
And that's the power of prep in like this type of deck when you have a lot
Like
more
a
threats.
non-miracle deck.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see the application of it. Usually,
Yeah.
but-
Even this deck, I don't want to say for sure, but probably runs Sprint. You can make some really powerful swing plays with Prep Sprint. Especially if you have like a Violet Teacher on the board, you can coin Violet Teacher into Prep Sprint, which just gives you a huge card advantage in a lot of matchups. And that Violet Teacher can go a long way, so this deck is really fun.
Well, I think Hyped has a couple options. I do like taking out the Spectrum Knight. Just disarm his damage, because you had the better late game by a fair margin. Because like you said, there's Dr. Boom. There's sometimes even Ragnaros or Alex Strauss in this deck.
Yeah.
So even if you're giving up your Azure Drake to trade into it, you're still putting pressure. And remember, you're actually close to killing your opponent too. So I like that he's not like, oh, I have Gallywix now. I can try to deny it.
Yeah.
You know, be patient and just, you might even be able to conceal him from the series.
Very
if you want
true.
to bring Rogue back later, Gallywix might be an MVP.
He's just got such a lead right now that it doesn't make too much sense to just, play it all willy-nilly. And there's the Rag as well.
Okay, hold on. Let's do some math here. He's got 9 damage on board, plus 3 from Deadly Poison, plus 1 from the Shiv.
Well, he could just go off. Well, he could go off Ace and then Rag.
It's not, yeah.
But a BGH would allow for at least a little bit of a swing turn.
I think I
for his
still
opponent.
like Azure Drake here. Shiv. Okay. I mean, I like the idea of drawing, for sure. Backstab allows him to kill off pretty easily. Oh man.
And there's the trade, Prince.
I was trying to listen to what he said, but
Oh,
'cause I
sorry.
don't actually play with him at all, so like I actually don't even know what he says.
It was like an
And
accordion.
you ruined it for me, TJ.
There was like an accordion there. It's like a little piece of accordion music. Sorry.
Yeah, I felt like I was there, but
Sorry, Dan.
I wasn't.
Maybe next time. Maybe next
It's
time.
all good. It's all good. Well, I think he's dead, because I think you got the Deadly Poison here.
I just want to point out this is the most 5/8s I've ever seen on a board.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. That's a 5/8, not a 6/8. So he's not dead yet.
Not quite.
Unless he decides to just show his Ragnaros here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this deck, and I think most of the decks that have been similar to this, that have either been on ladder or seen a competitive play, have run Rag. So you can't really assume, but it might be okay to...
I think you're so far ahead, you don't have to, though. You can play Azure Drake, and then just use Deadly Poison.
That's true. I think that might be the plan here if he's...
Oh, I guess it's Ragnar's coin flip then. Either outcome is okay. And you know, Hype's just going for the win.
Either outcome is very good. You either win or you win.
Well, you either win or you win by a bigger margin.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's Zoo.
Did you just have me going there? You just tried to get me to change my opinion. Hype said, oh, I want to practice handlock, and then just bring Zoo.
Well, I think Gooby mulligans as if it is going to be Zoo, and he has a pretty decent hand to stop early aggression. Either way, he's about to find out very quickly if it's Zoo or not.
Yeah, I don't really think you have a choice if you don't know. You sort of have to mulligan for Zoo.
Just because you can die if you're assuming otherwise.
Yeah.
The big game hunter will sit there useless.
Unless you think you have such a good gauge on a player's like play style that you know that they're going to play handlock.
Right. I mean, that's a good card. Molten Giant is pretty nice to have.
Very nice. Sunfear Protector's wall, so he's got a wall. He needs some form of AoE, though, to be able to deal with the board. Either a Shadow Flame or a Hellfire. Either would be good in this scenario because he does have the Ancient Watcher already on the board.
So, of course, Gooby is naturally going to want to fill out the curve as opposed to just be defensive immediately. And then maybe the Farseer can not only heal him, but draw away some heat with the Leopard Gnome trading into it. That's the ideal scenario. Of course, it's just as simple as it getting picked apart by any kind of buffer, so that way something's inefficient, then it goes down.
He's really thinking about it, though.
In the same way, too, minions with 1 health in this matchup feel like they're not that great just because of Mortal Coil. So, if Hype was to choose a minion to trade, he'd most likely choose the Leopard Gnome anyways.
Well, this play takes a little bit more heat off of his face, but it makes it so that if he does draw into a Shadow Flame as opposed to a Hellfire, it'd make it a little bit harder to use.
Well, this is now a little awkward because if he trades into the Ancient Watcher, he either has to give up his Voidwalker and make the Wolf vulnerable, or give up his Wolf and make the Voidwalker weaker, if he wants to play Harvest Golem. He also can play his Egg, be resilient against Hellfire next turn, more resilient, and then have a Power Overwhelming to push through, keep his damage, and be able to push through.
I honestly like the Power Overwhelming play more. But at the same time, if your opponent goes defensive like this, does that telegraph that they might not have Hellfire?
I mean, it's still too early to tell.
Yeah.
It's turn 3.
And you don't really know, I guess you don't really know what their other options were in that play. So it's hard to be able to say. But I do like the Power Overwhelming play a little bit more here. Just to be more resilient against that AoE. Hyped disagrees.
Okay, so he's going for the slower play. And I think it's because he wants to use Implosion to do some work here. Twilight Drake off the top is excellent draw, but Implosion almost certainly will guarantee a kill on that. And I think... Do you want an Implosion here, though?
Why? Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I guess because AoE, but...
It's just so hard. Besides the Egg, I guess it's just so hard to play around AoE, but I guess that's a really effective way to do so.
Oh, man. That Voidwalker is so annoying! Oh my god!
Oh, he decides to just hold instead of attacking in.
Well, okay, now I think it's a good safe call whether or not he had like AoE of some sort, because this is a board you definitely need to AoE down.
You can be pretty confident in the fact that he does not have it.
So you can have 2 juggles this turn, but it gives up a Power Overwhelming. I think you do want to play the Nerubian Egg.
I think you want to start tapping as well.
You think so?
I think so. Unless you're just trying to all in. But
I like power overwhelming on one of the M's to get through the Sludge Belcher, and then trading in the 1/1s if you get a good juggle with the Ruby Egg.
he can flood the board here.
It's good. Evaluate based off the juggle. It's pretty decent. In fact, now he can kill off the Sunfury Protector.
Yeah. I think other than face, he'd be pretty happy with the outcome for that juggle. So he's in a pretty good spot. He's got a little bit of protection against AoE with the Nerubian Egg. He hasn't really put on much pressure this far in the game. I mean, it's still early. It's turn 5, but usually at this point, you have a lot more pressure on the board, and giving a handlock the luxury of just playing a Sylvanas that quickly, that safely, without having to worry about having any risk of dying next turn is not likely.
So he's got 2 Undertakers and a Flame Imp. This is pretty awkward still.
Yeah.
How do you even go about this?
You can flood the board, but then you're not really that strong against AoE because your opponent has a creature on the board.
Well, assuming, what if it juggles 3 times? Or,
Wow,
you know,
yeah.
Do you just trade Knife Juggler in so that way Sylvanas has a smaller impact?
At this point, I don't know if you necessarily care whether or not
Like, Undertaker doesn't
you
even
control.
get that strong.
Yeah.
It's just a 1/2 at this point.
This is very awkward. I think, I mean, he's going to flood the board, but he's just thinking about what he's going to do with these juggles.
Oh,
After where these juggles
he
go.
has a decision if he trades in here.
Yeah.
And looks like he's not losing any of his active creatures.
Okay.
Loses his own Undertaker.
The imp would have been, I think, the only better choice in that scenario. So not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, and you know, Gooby's still pacing pretty well too, though. He's at a high health. He still has some reasonable amount of cards, and he's got that ever important Molten Giant, which is like really, really important to secure. He still hasn't seen Doomguard though, and that's always definitely something you're afraid of.
Or
Sea
Sea
Giant. When there's no Siphon Soul.
It kind of hurts not to tap on this turn, but if you're putting out a huge threat, then I guess it doesn't matter too much.
6-mana Giant though.
Yeah.
I think you're that sad.
Whoa! That hurts.
Well, I think that's justice for Gooby for how many times the top deck has hurt him for like
Exactly.
AoE sweep, you know?
Or the justice for that 3 damage crackle that he had in his shaman game.
Still too soon.
Yeah.
How many, like, the fact that Hype still hasn't tapped into a Death Rattle is also quite amusing, too. He had double Undertakers and 3 or 4 draws now.
He hasn't really tapped that much this game, though, it seems.
Yeah.
Because only twice, actually, because there was 3 damage from the Flame Imp. Which I guess it's turn 8, so it's not too bad. I guess he tapped on, what, 25% of his turns.
I guess he's hoping that this juggle hits one of the 2 health minions so that the Dire Wolf can pick up a trade here. But Hype's very soon going to get overrun by bigger threats. Like, how can he deal with Ragnaros? He can't. He's going to have to pop his own egg here. Wow, these are like some pretty good juggles for Hype. I feel like he's gotten really good juggles all game. One more.
Can't win them all.
No, you certainly can.
Oh, just throws down the rag and
If Rag hits face, though,
it did.
he gives him a small opening.
But still, he's really healthy. 18 health.
Right, but he's giving him an opening because he can't kill him again the next turn, and he has big minions, but he doesn't have taunt. So like, say both I guess I don't know. Maybe Hype will trade, but say both of these hit face. It doesn't matter how many Molten Giants you have if you don't have anything to give it taunt.
Very true.
Because then he puts him at 11 health, and then he's on a Doomguard draw to win the game.
Yeah, and you could throw those suckers down, but If there's nothing to activate them, they're virtually useless until the following turn.
I think you go for it.
You have to at this point, I think.
Although Shadow Flame? No, he'd be fine with Shadow Flame. I think he's calculating all the odds, like Hellfire, Shadow Flame, like do I die? Pretty tight.
He's got a decent board for Rag though.
That's a pretty important draw. The taunt is what he needed. So much so that he taps, and that Defender of Argus will lock him out of the game.
Yeah, that seals it.
For sure. There's no way to get past all this. Unless you have Twisting Nether or a top deck Deathwing.
You and your Deathwing.
Can you imagine?
That would be an innovation. Haunted Creeper is not a Twisting Nether.
Okay.
Flame Imp is just about as opposite of Twisting Nether as you can get. Actually, no. I'm sure there's better opposites than Flame Imp.
The opposite, very tall order considering Hype's definitely known to be one of the better players in all of North America. And he does have Sabotage, a card that is powerful against Handlock.
So this changes a lot because when I did have double Sabotage in that deck, my win rate versus Handlock was really good, especially if I had a Sabotage in my opening hand, because dealing with that first Giant is usually the hardest part of beating Handlock as a rogue player. So in the past, they would have to use like a Backstab, SI Agent, and an Eviscerate or something along those lines just to be able to deal with one Giant. But this makes it quite a bit easier.
And Hythe also has a preparation, so he can do some really interesting stuff because it's not necessarily even the preparation on the Sabotage, but he also can reload on his hand if he's expending a lot of his resources to deal with threats. He can prep Sprint on turn 4.
Yeah. This is the series of plays that I was talking about that I think is actually really powerful in Rogue, is like a Coin Violet Teacher into Prep Sprint. Now, I don't know if it's that great against Handlock, just because that coin can sometimes be really valuable later on, but it can be a really huge swing.
Well, you have 2 Violet Teachers in hand. I definitely think you want to push it out as soon as you can, just for board presence.
Yeah.
And again, force him to show what he has. Goody, by doing this, has also denied himself the ability to play a turn 4 Giant.
Yes, he has.
So he's going to have to tap again.
Wow.
So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if he preps Sprint, he'll have 9 cards. That's pretty strong.
That's
9
very
cards.
strong.
Like you ramped with card draw, and you didn't have to give up any life.
And then he's putting tokens on the board as well.
Yeah, it's true. For 2 cards, you draw 4, and then you put out 2 1/1s.
For 4 mana. I think that's really strong.
So if that was summarized as discard a card, draw 4, and summon 2 1/1s.
It'd be a very complicated card, but I'd play it.
He also has another opportunity for Violet Teacher here. Second Violet Teacher.
Yeah.
It's not as clear cut as it is just a simply, ooh, cards, yay.
I was thinking that. But I think he wants to have a way to deal with the Ancient Watcher next turn, a clean way to deal with the Ancient Watcher next turn.
I mean, he can deal with it now as well.
Yeah.
Just simply as a Deadly Poison Shiv with the Blood Mage Thanos.
Yeah.
Actually kills it off. So
I think this plays better, because next turn he could still throw the Violet Teacher in and his tokens and be able to sabotage a big Giant.
Ooh, a Backstab.
And a BGH.
Very important cards. This is why he feels good against Handlock, I suppose.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a fantastic opening for Hyped, and this changes things quite a bit. And Twilight Drake goes out. I mean, Goody actually has a pretty good hand. He's got all 4 of his big threats early on, but with Violet Teachers, and that many cards in a Rogue's hand, he can put out so much damage in a single turn. Even though this isn't Miracle Rogue, they don't rely on win conditions. They still can put out a sneaky amount of damage in a single turn.
Backstab and Eviscerate with a Thanos is 8 damage.
Okay.
And a token trades it in. So you actually don't trade much to kill off the Drake.
You're replacing 2 tokens with it, so.
Right. And then you push for a little bit of damage.
Indeed.
I mean, now that you have so many cards, it's a little bit hard to tell, but you have a pretty significant amount of burst too with Deadly Poison and Blade Flurry in the next couple turns. And you also have Sap to get rid of like a big target, the taunt.
Yeah, and later on in the game, like a sap damage spell Sabotage clears like double Molten Giant Defender Vargas or something along those lines. So, a really powerful play later on.
You know, I wonder if Goody also might have given up his Mortal Coil a little bit early if he wanted to use, Sabotage. Okay, I wasn't expecting this.
No.
But I think Hype's making a read based off of what his opponent showed in the first few turns of the game by not having a turn 4 play.
Yeah. Well, that's the power of Sabotage. Sometimes it's better to save it for later, but there's really no hurt in playing it right now. A big threat is a big threat, no matter how you look at it, and either way, he's going to have ways to deal with it.
7. Hold on.
Calculating lethal damage.
There might be lethal next turn if he doesn't Hellfire here.
Dalnos, Eviscerate, Blade Fury.
There's 7 on board plus the Eviscerate and Shiv. So that's 5, 7, 17.
He has 17 damage.
Yeah, 17 damage.
I mean, if he draws into a prep, he can prep Shiv. Yeah, that's maybe with tap. With a tap, that's lethal.
This is a very defensive play.
Wow.
Ends up being okay here.
I think you can just file a teacher.
Man, what does that even say if you're the rogue player reading into it? It's like he must have nothing.
Nothing.
It's like when he has a lot. He had all 4 of his ideal turn 4 plays.
And he's got both AoEs as well. It's like out of all the options, he's like, well, I can probably overextend now. He didn't AoE last turn, didn't get rid of my tokens.
Right.
These tokens aren't as dangerous as, like, say, a Paladin's 1/1s, or even like a Druid's 1/1s. Like, they're probably the least threatening tokens out of any, like, token-y deck.
Right.
Because you don't really have any ways to buff them. Because Cold Bloods don't exist really in rogue decks anymore. But still, that damage can really add up quickly.
I mean, it is. Already has. 17. There's
lethal next turn.
There's definitely lethal next turn because there's 8 on the board with minions, 11, and then of course you have the Eviscerate with Spell Power and a Blade Flurry. So that will be lethal.
Even if he Hellfire clears. No.
If he Hellfires, I think he's okay.
Yeah, he's okay. Because if he Hellfire clears, it'd be 12 damage on board.
He'd be at 14 health. His opponent has 6. Oh man, Siphon Soul number 2?
You can tell Gooby shook his head.
How does... I mean, there's Dr. Boom and Ragnaros in this deck.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. 5, 15, 18...
He's 1 mana.
Ah, he's 1 mana off lethal.
Wow. And the plays here aren't as clear cut as they were before.
Wait, are you sure? Actually, no. I think he wouldn't even have it.
Okay,
yeah,
so
he wouldn't have it even if.
10 plus 4. Oh yeah, he'd be at 19. That'd be 19 damage with 8 mana.
So now I think you attack, and do you hold off on letting him play Molten Giants?
Yeah.
I guess it's okay because you have
a lot of. Yeah.
Play Thalnos. I think do you play your smaller minions like Thalnos and Farseer? If he Hellfire clears and then plays Molten Giants, you're okay with that, right? Because
then you win. Yeah, I think you're okay with that. Well, actually, no, you wouldn't win in that situation.
And then you have double Eviscerate with, you have Blade Flurry, double Eviscerate, and hit the face.
Okay. Yeah. Lots of damage calculations going on this turn.
He would have to Hellfire, Molten Giant, and taunt up with a Sun Fury, and then Hyped could draw Preparation, prep Sap into double Eviscerate, Blade Flurry, and Hero Power and win. So it looks like no matter what Gooby does here, he's dead.
Yeah.
A very, very meticulous setup here on both ends, like a lot of calculations. But looks like in the end, Gooby is going to go down here.
Yeah. And he had to play that Molten Giant before the Hellfire, or else he wouldn't have had enough mana. So there's no choice in injuring that
This
Mountain
is
Giant.
exact lethal here, I believe.
Yeah.
You have to Blade Flurry first, and then double Eviscerate for 8 damage. That's 11, and then Hero Power and kill him.
Exact lethal for exact mana.
Yep. And Hype's played so much Rogue that there's no way he's gonna miss like lethals.
Yeah,
He always counts it out as best as he can.
yeah. And you always have to play ahead as Rogue, at least a little bit to sort of make sure that you set yourself up for lethal. And that's a pretty quick first series, but a really exciting one.
I mean, that's already in contention for one of my favorite series of the day, just solely off the first game. And you know, what a great run again by Goody.